right. We return. So, how many of you are familiar with Common Core? I mean, we see that it's being implemented without, it's being implemented as if we all agreed to allow it to be implemented. It's being pumped and promoted by people that, quite frankly, are only interested in their own nefarious ends. And I'm speaking specifically here about Bill Gates, because he's defending his investment in Common Core in the millions of dollars that he's invested. And he does not do this as some sort of a charity event. He invested in Common Core because he expects to make an enormous amount of money for his efforts, whether that money goes to his nonprofit foundation or what have you. I mean, certainly he doesn't need the money personally, I get that. But he actually had the nerve to come out the other day and say, that scale is good for free market competition, but individual state regulatory capture is not good for competition. Well, with all due respect, I got to tell you, I don't think we're in any kind of a position where we should be trusting what he has to say. I mean, I really don't find his idea of Common Core to be in the best interest of anybody other than himself. Only a guy who built his fortune on the principles and the concepts of monopoly could think that a monopoly in education is a good thing, as long as, by the way, he's in control and involved in the monopoly. He actually came out and made a comment about how it, talking about capitalism and how it relates to that. Well, let me tell you something. Common Core isn't capitalistic, and it's not market-driven. This is top-down from the government, and it is top-down totalitarianism and nothing short of that. And his defense of it reminds me of, Goebbels telling a big lie and telling it long enough and often enough that people begin to agree with it and believe it. And soon it's just accepted. Nobody questions it. The problem is that Mr. Gates can't buy himself integrity and honor, no matter how much money he's got. And I got to tell you, these standards that he is promoting here are anything but state standards. If you've seen the documentation, if you've done your homework, if you have kids, or you even know kids, and you haven't done your homework, then you have been derelict in your duty. And I'm accusing you of participating and allowing Common Core to move forward. Not because you actively have supported it, but because you have refused to fight back against it, which is essentially the same thing. I have heard people say to me, and I've said it myself, the Muslims get very upset because when you say, well, the Muslims are a dangerous religion, they say, not all Muslims, that's not fair. You can't paint us all with the same brush. We're not all terrorists. It's a religion of peace. And I say, oh, really? Well, if it is, then why is it that you are not cleaning out your own mosques yourselves? Why is it that you don't take those individuals who you know to be a threat to the community and the city and the nation that you live in and eject them and shun them publicly? I mean, if you know them to be a danger, you have an obligation to do so. And I say the same thing to you. If you know that Common Core is not good for this nation, then you have an obligation to do what you can to fight against it. Does that mean taking time out from your busy day to show up at some kind of a meeting to educate your school board? Yes, it does. Is that convenient? No. Is it comfortable? No. Does it mean that you're going to have to make a few phone calls, get onto the internet, do some research, educate yourself about it, spend a few hours learning about it, and then go out there and speak out and get outside your comfort zone? Yes, that's exactly what it means. Have you done so? If your answer to me is no, then I say to you, you're not policing yourself. I had a discussion with Jack Spirko the other day, and towards the end of the interview, we were talking about this issue with Muslims who refuse to out the other Muslims and say, aha, that's the guy. This guy's dangerous. I heard him talking about blowing up a car bomb in so-and-so city, and I'm exposing him. And I have the same thing. I say the same thing to police officers. If you are a senior officer and you see other officers, if you're a rookie and you see other officers who are sitting there abusing people and you refuse to speak out and testify against them and remove them from the force in order to protect us, then you have failed in your duty. And I say the same thing to a teacher. If you see Common Core and you don't speak out because you're afraid of losing your job to some little tyrannical Hitler mini-me on a school board somewhere, shame on you. If you're a union that's supporting this and you fail to expose it for what it is because you just want to make sure that your membership gets their comfy ride, shame on you. You're selling our youth down the road of treason and tyranny for your own personal advancement? Really? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of the problem of our nation. That is why every aspect of the United States of America is on the brink of complete and utter collapse. That is why the center cannot hold. Because everybody's more interested in their own personal whatever. Satisfaction, safety, security, their own job. Don't make too much noise. By the time you come to the point where you have awakened and it is clear that you must make noise, it will be too late. And you will be the only one left standing in the room, looking about saying, "Who's with me?" Only to find that those who were with you are long gone. They preceded you, but you were too afraid or too ashamed to speak up. You risk nothing to fight Common Core. Maybe a little community ostracization. Maybe a little bit of discomfort because you've got to go out there and speak in front of a school board who you know is going to be aggressive and intimidating back to you. Why don't you sharpen your steel while you've got ample time to practice against non-professionals like school boards? Why don't you sharpen your blade, your rapier blade called your tongue, while you can do so in a place where it doesn't really matter? You know why? Because 9 out of 10 school board meetings, you're the only parent going to be there. The rest of your friends and neighbors and townsmen have completely abdicated their responsibility to our children. So you can go there and you can speak because nobody's going to see it if you mess up. They're all sitting at home watching, I don't know, The Bachelor, some other reality, mind-numbing experience. The Common Core standards were not developed for implementation as a unique standalone program state by state. These are standards that are pitched from and created by the Department of Education, which is a national organization. These are curriculums that are intended so that wherever that, and you know, they try and tell us, well, this is really so that if a kid moves here from, you know, Kansas or from Seattle or New York or Miami or and moves to St. Louis, that we know that that child is going to have this. Let me tell you something. The statistical numbers show that it's only like, what, 1 or 2% of all kids in school transfer from one state to another. That's bogus. But it's pitched as one of the leading reasons. Debunk it. Expose it. Well, I don't know much about this Common Core. I mean, I only know what I hear or I've heard on the radio or I've read an article. You know what? That's your fault. That's your fault for not having actually taken the time to go and educate yourself about it. You could have shown up at a meeting. You could have gone to any of the Mothers Against Common Core. You could have typed in Common Core, the negatives, the downsides of Common Core into any browser, and you could have read from now until Easter. But you don't. You don't because, you know, you're busy doing something else. What is that something else? I don't know. But whatever it isn't more important than the preservation and the restoration of our nation. It isn't more important than whether or not we're allowing our children to have propaganda drilled and pounded into their minds. If you're unhappy with the way our government is, and according to current polls out there, some 65% of Americans say we're headed in the wrong direction. Well, where the heck are the 65% who are saying, and Common Core is leading us there? I don't get it. Gates has the unmitigated goal, when pushed to discuss it, he expresses this frustration that Common Core is being opposed by pro-market people. He says, and so this thing, in terms of driving innovation, you'd think that sort of pro-capitalistic, market-driven people would be in favor of it. But, you know, somehow it's gotten to be controversial. I'll tell you why it's controversial. It's not pro-market. It's not pro-capitalistic. It's not market-driven. It's monopolistic, headed and led and run by Arne Duncan, who published, go look up Arne Duncan, A-R-N-E Duncan, and type in Little Black Book and see what pops up. This is a guy who distributed books, little pamphlets that he created on gay lifestyle to kids that were in junior high school. And incorporating into that, he was giving them lists of gay bars they should go to. These were kids in high school. Why are you giving them lists of gay bars to go to? I don't really care who you sleep with. I don't care how you do it. I don't care who you do it with. I'm saying to you that that's not the place of anyone to educate a kid like that, give them ideas. They had a whole segment in there about using your hand in someone's rear end up to the elbow. I think that's completely unnecessary. And this is the guy who's running our Department of Education under Obama, because his goal is to completely debase the entire damn country. This is about as pro-capitalistic and market-driven as Microsoft. And only from the mind of a monopolist could that kind of an argument come out. There's nothing pro-capitalist about this. This wasn't designed by the 50 states and then being implemented in each of the 50 states as a competitive experiment. This is top-down declaration. And it's propagandizing your child's malleable, moldable mind. What are you waiting for? It's beyond me that parents would sit around and gripe about this, but not take any action. Go to your doggone school board and rip their computers out of the wall and say, that's it, we're done. You're out. You're all fired. Hold a recall election. I don't care. Get them out of there. If they won't do your will, then find somebody who will and remove them physically if necessary. Is it not your town? Is it not your county? Is it not your community? Are they not your children? Somebody will come up and save us from ourselves. They'll ride up on a white horse and do the right thing by us every time. It's always happened in the past. We can't just take things into our own hands anymore. Apparently, you've already been indoctrinated. Folks, you got to realize this is going to come down to somebody having the brass to march in there to a school board, to defend and protect their property, to be able to see, if I say what needs to be said, I won't be on the air much longer. And that should suffice to help you understand that you have to recognize that the time is now for us to be able to put a stop to this. But I got to tell you, I'm sitting here, a voice in the wilderness, crying this stuff out every day, and I'm not seeing anybody doing anything other than posting up garbage on Facebook or sitting there, and I don't see new authors writing articles. I don't hear people out there in the streets. Why aren't there crowds of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parents at school board meetings with pitchforks and torches and buckets of tar as a representative figure, if nothing else, and saying, this is how much we're against it. If you continue in this folly, we will remove you from office. End it. End it yourselves. Did you know that your school board has the right, at least in the state of Missouri where I am, the school board has the right to say, nope. Now, you're going to lose funding. I get it. But you see, you should have stood up against this a long, long time ago. I've been to school board meetings where they said, well, it's being implemented now, but we're looking at it still. Why are you looking at it? You've completely abdicated your responsibility to the parents and the children in your community. If it's already being implemented, then why are you looking at it now? You should have looked at it before it was ever implemented, before it was ever instituted. How dare you use that as if that's some sort of a cloak that gives you excusability? We're studying it. What's there to study? Under Common Core, 3 times 4 equals 11. Our children are in enough trouble with the influence of everything else, music, the influence of negative stereotypes, the influence of drugs, the prevalence of alcohol, the prevalence of activity that and behavior that is dangerous. Now you're going to allow that to be compounded by a school system which, for all intents and purposes, encourages those negatives while refusing to stand up and deliver to them that which they need, which is a counterbalancing argument. And you at home, one, don't have the influence. Number two, you don't have the time. You're sitting there and you're going to try to influence them in the 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day you see them and counterbalance and counteract the 8 hours they gathered in school. Not to mention the other 10 hours they gather while they're watching television or surfing the internet or whatever it is that they're doing. It's a lost cause, folks. And I got to tell you, these are going to be our future leaders. Like the children of the 60s are now running the thing. You remember these people who were, all against the man? They've now become the man. And they are far worse than the man was back when he was or she was oppressing them. You ever hear the old phrase, today's freedom fighter is tomorrow's tyrant? That's your liberal progressive right there in a nutshell. And you're going to allow them to do this to your children. All right. That's your choice. But I pity you, and I pity this nation in 20 years. I pity this nation because if what they're taught in school today is what they're going to move forward with as their foundational basis for a worldview, the human race is done. Not just the United States of America, the human race. I got to tell you, you listen to people like Gates, you listen to people like Soros, you listen to every one of these sycophants in Congress who's supporting it, and all of them are committing a level of treason against our children that is incomprehensible. But, we've been long-suffering up until now. I see no reason to believe that we're ever going to change that. Not until the blood's flowing in the streets or, everybody's living in lockdown in their homes because, you've been told to. And maybe not even then. Well, good luck to you, America, because, I can only say that which some of you have said to me over the time. You say what I wanted to say, but I don't know how to say it. Well, you know what? Why don't you practice it? Why don't you get out there and practice it? Start on your mother, start on your husband, start on your father, start on your wife. Hone your argument, sharpen your stone, sharpen your steel with the stone. Start writing. I can't write. Why don't you try it? Or is that really just a convenient excuse for you to be able to have plausible deniability? I'm really getting tired of patriots who yak and yak and yak, but don't do a damn thing. And if you're one of them, then I got to tell you, we got nothing further to discuss. I'm out here blowing my spout every day. Do you think I'm making friends in government doing this? Do you think I enjoy getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do this homework? The center cannot hold. The center cannot hold. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. and mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity.